Day 2 of the November and December 97 7-day retreat in Springwater. A question which looms large for many meditators, whether they are beginners or right in the middle of it. At one time or other, this question comes up: what is the goal of this work? What's the purpose? Does it sound familiar? Maybe each one of us puts it a little bit differently. What am I working toward? Oh, why am I doing this? This question comes up. What am I trying to achieve with this? Many of us have practiced in traditions where the goal of enlightenment is constantly, or almost constantly, brought up to the students, to the meditators, to arouse energy to keep going. Or tell the discouraged mind that there's hope. Enlightenment can be attained by everyone. Yesterday someone mentioned that this quote by the Buddha gripped him ever since he's heard it. I don't have the whole quote handy. But the last gripping line is that the goal of the holy life is unshakable deliverance of the mind. And many of us who have read and heard and seen on tape Krishnamurti talking to people, talking about setting human beings unconditionally free. That was his goal at a very early point in his life. Set human beings unconditionally free. Very similar to unshakable deliverance of the mind. So, hearing that, attainment of enlightenment, or what we've just quoted, what does the mind do with this? Or what is it to the mind that hears and listens and wants and fears? Does it become, like so many other things, a new object of desire? Objects of desire, most of the time, need the imagination to keep dangling the object somewhere in the brain, and then, because of the connections between brain and body, throughout the body, We desire the objects of our fantasy, of our imagination. Without the ability to think and imagine, we wouldn't desire goals for ourselves. We would just desire what is close at hand and in harmony with the rhythms of the body. Do I sound as though I'm putting something down? Is it heard in that way? A warning. We're looking at things, not saying this is right and therefore that must be wrong, or the other way around. To learn to listen without opposition or opposites. Just looking at what is being offered for communal looking and inquiring. I remember the teacher where I practiced for many years, often advising or suggesting to students to read again the Enlightenment stories, to arouse the energy, to do this very hard work of sitting very austerely. And the goal in mind, even though it may not be thought about all the time, but it is there. And it informs the organism to keep going for the ultimate reward. Many of us who have worked in this way have found out, discovered, that keeping a goal in mind and keeping the body, as it were, magnetized toward that goal, energized, magnetized is not a bad word, toward that goal, is not the way of present being here, right now. Let's test it right now. The presence, the breathing, the physical sensations, the sunlight pouring in and warming the body, and the awareness of it all right now at this moment of listening isn't goal-oriented, is it? Thinking of a goal plays no part, has no function in attending, opening up to this moment of one knows not what it is yet because a thought about it hasn't arisen yet. Always comes an instant later, thinking about what happened. And was already a new happening, which, when not thought about in this lagging way, is present for all of us. Being here now, without knowing yet, needs no goal. Not just it needs no goal. One begins to realize directly, experientially, that thinking of a goal, of something I ought to attain, ruptures this wholesome presence. Of course, you can say, wait a minute, I don't experience this wholesome presence. I already feel ruptured. So what is this feeling ruptured? Can we look at it? Not grasp after the goal of completeness and wholeness, but inquire into and attend to this feeling of rupturedness, division, conflict. To allow the awareness to behold it all in a fresh way, which means non-rejectingly, non-graspingly, non-judgmentally. And again, we say, wait a minute, but there are judgments, there are comparisons. There is, I feel, organismically a rejection of pain or fear. I can feel the resistance right now. So, let's feel resistance, let's be with it. What is it? Allow it to unfold in a new way. This new way rejects nothing. And even the rejection comes into view as something worth looking at and listening to. Does this make sense? We can say, all right, I understand, I've experienced myself that constantly thinking of a better state to attain takes away being here. I have some feeling for that. And yet I do want to be free. I do want to find peace, wholeness, absence of conflict. There's a real deep yearning for being at one, undivided. So, there it is. If it is there, to also let it appear in awareness, which excludes nothing, grabs nothing and rejects nothing. No one would be here or any place else without wanting something. And as we get here wanting something from this work, get settled in our rooms, come into this lovely, spacious, light hall, and sit down. What is there? Just the wanting to be someplace to get something? All right, let's listen to it. Accompanied by hum of airplane and crows cawing. And the breathing, which is there all the time for human beings as long as we're alive. Breathing. Can we listen to the breathing, attend to it, experience it freely in the midst of wanting and fearing? It's there. Airplane isn't always there, but when it's there, humming away. A deep breath or shallow breathing, quiet breathing or noisy breathing. Is it there? question also comes up frequently. Is it all right to concentrate on the breathing? I have learned in the midst of all the haziness of thinking and dreaming, fantasizing, I've learned a practice of bringing the mind back to the breath. Is that all right? My question is, who is bringing the mind back? Is dreaming, fantasizing, and as it happens for ordinary human beings like you and me, there's also waking up from a dream. And there's ka, and breathing. It's there. It's been there all the time, just was not attended to. So what is the difference between this? We're trying to get at that yesterday in a small meeting. What's the difference between concentrating on the breathing or the way it's verbalized, bringing the mind back to the breathing, and just a simple attention given to what is there, among which is always breathing? Not always the sunshine, not always the crows, not always the radiator ticking, but breathing is there. So I don't know what the difference is unless we came to that yesterday. There is a real exertion. One person said, I feel there's almost some kind of manipulation going on to concentrate on the breathing. And it's too complicated. It's not necessary to make it more complicated than it is. I don't have to do something for the breathing to appear in awareness. Actually, the quieter the doer and manipulator, the easier the attention. The less fragmented, the more open and non-exclusive. Very often, if one has been given and has gotten habituated to a practice such as concentrating on the breath, there is also some kind of designation of what is the right practice, attending to the breathing, and what are the distractions that would take the mind away from its object of concentration. But in open listening, there is no distraction. There's only cawing and humming and breathing and heart beating and sun warming. This moment of presence. Nothing to be avoided or cut off. Nothing to be held on to. You could say, and I hear it in the minds. This mind is part of it. Yeah, you put it so easily. It's not as easy as all that. The mind does get caught up, drifting, dreaming, remembering, anticipating. Or, as one person said, such crazy thoughts, I don't even think they're mine. Just drifting around, which is probably the case. Why think that the thoughts are just located here in the skull? Radio waves are all over the place, and TV waves. Is that what you call them also? TV waves? So why not thought waves? It puzzles a lot of people. What crazy thoughts. I don't have any association with it. So that happens whether we have an established practice or not. It's not just connected with open listening, this drifting away. teaching in a Zen center, people would ask me, how can I keep the mu better in the hara or wherever we kept it? How can I have more ardor, more energy, more endurance? Mind is so weak, so drifty, dreamy. That's how it is. So let's behold it all without rejection. So, dreaming happens. Every night dreaming happens. And one either wakes up and is glad the dream is over, or one wakes up and wishes it would go on a little bit further. I want to know the end of it. But we do wake up. There's a crucial moment. Maybe we have not given sufficient attention to this precious moment of waking up from a dream, from a drift, from a fantasy, which happens all the time, only the mind keeps right on going. I've often likened it to a train station. You get out of one train and take the next one out. The condemnation train or the justification train or the train to the goal, dreaming of where I want to get to. Or despairing, it's the despairing train of never getting there. Not me, the others, yes. So this precious moment, maybe talking about it and looking at it, listening to it, the next time, or one of the next times there is a moment of waking up, can one hold it, as it were, and watch the desire to board the next train of reaction, of commentary, and hold it and listen to what is there beside the trains or the potential trains. Listen to the breathing, not as an assigned practice, but as the marvel of being alive. Have we ever really completely listened to one in-breath and one out-breath without knowing it? Because this is our habituation. I know what breathing is. Why give it any special attention? All right, 1, 2, 3. No, what is it? And in asking, what is it, not answering it, but listening freshly to what is unfolding. And one may find that the listening has to get quieter and quieter, finer and finer, to really be the breathing, as it were. Let it show itself. And drop the ideas about it, that it goes from the nose into the abdomen and then out the mouth. One may have learned to visualize the breathing from the nostrils and visualizing the lungs and all the tubes and things, whatever one has visualized. But can one drop the assigned visualization and not know what it is and experience it directly? We don't need to have any meditation teacher or textbook tell us about it. We're doing it all the time. It's happening in its marvelous and mysterious way, keeping this body alive. Without food we can last, I don't know, a few weeks. Without drink, less. Without breath, not very long at all. I also read recently in a new book about the brain, which was written very compassionately for people who are not experts in the terms and in the field. But we all have a brain. It's operating for all of us. So I read in this book that, see now, my memory is dwindling, diminishing. A very, very small percentage of the body mass is brain. 2%, a little bit more. But the food it demands, which is sugar and oxygen, is 20% of what the body provides. And experiments have shown, we don't need experiment, we are the living experiment, that giving attention demands particular amount of sugar and oxygen. The brain demands it to keep attending. It's a very interesting statistic for me to read, because people who do this work of attending, listening, watching, waking up and not just drifting, but awareing, find that they get very exhausted, very hungry. You should see the amounts of food that are cooked and provided by the kitchen. Because it's not only the brain demanding, there's also more other things demanding food. But the brain is involved in it all. Brain is involved in boredom or imagining wonderful food to fill me, to satisfy me. And every time there is attending or imagining, there is food needed to sustain that activity. So, coming back to this visualization thing, which I also used to do in the beginning, we were told, don't just breathe, but visualize the breath. Now we were to visualize the counting, the 1, 2, 3. That's what we were to visualize. But at any rate, only after not being invested in any imposed schemes, but attending freely, innocently, was it clear that the body breathes all over the place, not just through the nostrils or the mouth. At least there's a tingling energy associated with every breathing in and out. So, there's so much to be discovered if we're not too tied, not too invested in assumptions about ourselves and our goals, putting them aside, suspending them for the time being, and just being here. Newborn, newly born. So what is the goal of this work, was the question. I'll not brush it aside. It's too common, too moving of people. Brings people here. And when one is entangled in so many thoughts and so many doubts coming up about what one is doing, and the brain wants to know, well, what is the purpose of it? Why am I doing this? These questions come up out of the confusion of not being here, torn here and there, in thinking and emoting and feeling. And of course, this question has been very important for myself. Very early, not what is the purpose or goal of meditation. I knew nothing about meditation. When this question was already moving me deeply, strongly, what's the purpose of life? What is the goal of life? Purposes or meaning is the words that formed themselves. A very similar question, and I had a very great motivating source to find out, to inquire, to read, to converse, and eventually find a meditation place. Which maybe would reveal the meaning of life. So it's very similar, isn't it? What's the goal of this work? What's the meaning of life? Coupled with the real deep, sincere desire for what? For freedom, wholeness, in-touchness, love. Not the yearning to be loved, but loving to love. So, reflecting upon this, what is the goal of this work? Can we say that you may not agree with it, but this is what I'm saying, that the goal of this work is to find out about oneself, to find out the truth about oneself, and in finding out the truth about oneself, what is revealed as the truth of the world, of life, is that accessible to discovery? Maybe putting it this way, the goal of this work, to find the truth about myself, doesn't necessarily lead away toward some more abstract goal, deliverance of the mind or enlightenment, but leads right in here. What am I really, this moment of doubting, of wanting, of fearing? What is the substance of what is being felt right now? The fear with its palpitations and contractions and pains, and generation of fantasies and thoughts about what could happen to me. What's the substance of it? Of fearing? What's the substance of desiring? What makes it possible? How does it arise? Right here, I need to ask, where it is all taking place, just waiting to be discovered, and not to stop at explanation, analysis, reflection, but to go right into it and right through it, to the bottom of it. What's at the root bottom of fear, of desire? Not just how does it feel, and going with the feeling, being one with the feeling. It's not enough. Where does it arise from? Not intellectually grasping it, but experiencing it. All the way right down to the bottom. And what's underneath the bottom of it? Are we interested? Are we interested to find out what's at the root bottom of us all? Not just the expressions, the manifestations like fearing, desiring, pleasuring, and paining, where does it all come from? I don't mean chronologically, but right now, experientially. And what's beyond that root? Is there something? Not a goal, not an imagination. I don't know. I just ask. We're free to ask questions. And then inquire into the not knowing in being. Maybe this was an awful lot for day number 2. But it's all right to start all of these things going. We have another lots of days. And there are meetings, group and single, in which questions that may stir up out of such a talk can be brought up, and we'll look at it freshly. Whether the sun is shining or the clouds are darkening, doesn't matter. We will end here for today.